Welcome to Family Bid-Ness, where we give family insights into small business growth and small business strategy. I am your host, Tim Haggerty, here with my co-host, Ben. Say hi, Ben.
Hello. We're live from WFLA Orlando and brought to you nationwide through iHeartRadio.
Now, over the next hour, we're going to be going over some old business perspectives that's brought to you by yours truly, as well as some new business perspectives brought to you by
The one and only. After our family business concludes, we're sitting down to look through some family insights. Then we'll see if we can bridge that family divide.
So now we're all here building small businesses together, and we really are stronger for it. You want to know why? Because, I'll tell you, because a rising tide truly does lift all boats.
Really?
Yes.
That's water, huh?
Well, it has something to do with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about that? Good start. I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
Because, as we know, we give family insights into small business growth and strategy. So,
Yes.
we run a small business, of course, right? And so, with that, I have a position about hiring, which actually goes to our segment that I kind of want to talk about, small business culture. Okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So small business culture, you're focused on hiring today. So what's your thoughts on this?
Okay, so, and I've been faced with this, okay? And this is why it's very important to me as a small business owner. Okay, when I go out to hire, what do I focus on more? Do I focus on experience, of which I am then going to probably have to pay and invest more up front? Or do I focus on bringing someone in that is not as experienced, but I'm willing to train, right? Which means another investment there. Okay. Now, faced with this, as a small business, I have been trying to, of course, we want to get to market as quickly as we can, right? Yeah. So with that...
And build a good company culture.
Well, yes, that's exactly right? So it's kind of a precarious walk, right? Mm-hmm. So I am now of the mind, though, as a small business owner, given the size of our business and all that kind of stuff, small business, less than 50 employees, let's say, right? I am of the mind that I will look to hire with experience first of people, of course, that will fit in the culture. I'm going to try to do that, but I am willing to invest more up front to do that so I can help us get to market faster. What do you think of that?
I think that you're focused a lot on getting to market.
Yeah.
Which, fair, every small business has to be able to compete in their industry.
Yes.
But even when they're competing, this is still a big question that they have to ask.
Okay.
So small business is always relative, of course. If you consider yourself a small business, you're probably a small business.
Yeah, okay.
So we're talking about the smallest of the small. You're really just getting started, right?
Well, we're about 4 years in, right? So not necessarily just getting started. This is, but it does start from day one, wrapping back to the culture, because as I thought about this now, making decisions about this now, right, being a couple years down the road, it wraps back to day one of when it was just you and I.
Okay.
Remember, right? But it always comes back to the actual culture part. But when it comes to hiring now, that's where my mind goes, Now, I know that you might think in the other way, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I don't like your answer at all. You're talking about culture.
Yeah.
The issue with it, when you're hiring, you're focused on hiring people for experience, and then you're just expecting them to come with the right mindset. You're hoping that you're going to get this golden goose when you go to find resumes, that they'll be the perfect person for you and your company. And they'll have every piece of experience and all the capabilities to perform in that job. You know
what? Actually, let me just stop you there, because you're right, actually. Golden goose is an excellent term for it. Mm-hmm. Aren't we all looking at that? Like when we go to make our plans, let's say I'm going to go make a hiring plan, right? I'm thinking that, golden goose, happiest path, right? But in reality, I think that's what you're saying. It doesn't always work out like that.
Well, it works out like that eventually, but you have to ask yourself, as a small business, do you have limited time, limited resources? For one guy in 100 resumes might pan out to be the perfect guy that you're looking for, or whoever it is. Now, you also have to think about what you're really interested in. If you're looking for a diversity hire, that makes the pool even smaller necessarily.
Yes, okay, true.
So is it worth it for that small business to put in the extra time and resources to find that right hire?
Oh yeah, I absolutely do think so too. And then, by the way, just to let our listeners in, we are Family Bid-Ness, giving small business insight from growth and strategy from a small business owner's perspective.
Wow.
Yeah, what do you think? Nice,
That was
good.
deep.
Thank you. Really. So now with that, yeah, you can't get away from culture. You see, so and that's actually kind of my point. You see, so as an owner, I want to hire the person who can get the company or whatever this task is, right? Can get us to that wherever we want to be within our goals and milestones as quickly as we can with the highest quality as possible, right? So, but you are 100% right, because that is one of the other things that we have experienced, right? We have to hire the people that fit in the culture, because even if you just go for just the total experience part, no, you're 100% right. It does not work. We have experienced that firsthand, actually, right?
Absolutely.
So you are right, but my mind still stays there. I don't want to invest the capital or cash up front as a small business to train someone in order to hopefully that, of course, they could be someone who would fit wonderfully within the culture, but I'm thinking I would rather spend more cash up front and then go hire the more experienced applicant, right?
So
That as a small business. I'm saying that as a small
with
business.
this, let's look at a perspective, because we talked to a wonderful small business probably over a year ago now, where they told us they're not small anymore, but they were telling us their story of growth. And when they were in this position, they specifically they were in the federal contracting market.
Right.
Small business looking to work with different agencies they did not have connections or partnerships with currently.
Correct.
They went the route of she personally knew a person. She met the man, and she hired him as a business development contractor.
Yep.
He was very, very expensive.
He was.
And if that didn't pan out, that was her company right there.
It was
But
quite the risk.
it was
That is
quite
true.
the risk, and she took it. And he started everything off saying, this is your best option, but you might not win. So for her small business, it made sense to go that route, to hire based on experience and who they knew. But would
Yes.
you really say that's true for every
No.
small business?
Well, in that particular case, because I know the owner of that business, right? She is an excellent manager, by the way. That's one of the
Oh,
other
yeah.
things. So in this case, she was able to combine those management skills, the organizational skills that she has, right? Combined with she also knows people. So the individual that she chose to help her build, honest broker, right?
Oh, yeah.
Really does or did have the connections that were claimed, and combining all those things together, wow, that just really made that quite a wonderful package, right? That reduced the risk and increased the probability of something happening, especially since they sprinkled in the whole personal relationship thing in there, because the gentleman had personal relationships on the government side and was able to introduce her as an honest broker as well too. You see, so all of that, excellent strategy. Love that whole thing. And she was able to make that work. It was not cheap. And wasn't free. She had to
Exactly.
pay for that. That was an investment up front.
And it was
which
only
did
for
work.
the beginning of the business. After that relationship ended and they separated, she was able to benefit from it. But that was that relationship. It cost an arm and a leg, and she made out. But it was a dangerous thing for her to do, and it was impressive.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
So,
agree.
with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back with Family Bid-Ness after a short water break. Stay tuned.
Now, the last thing we want to do as professionals is waste time. Now, that's why when the question comes up, can this be outsourced? When we answer, that's so important to our small business, especially to our growth. So now when you're thinking outsourcing, you can think Fiverr.com. Now, they have a platform of professionals that are delivering high quality items quickly, and they can support your next business task, no issues. So just go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. You can enter promo code BID-NESS. You can let them know that we sent you.
Welcome back to Family Bid-Ness, where we give family insights into small business growth and small business strategy. Today, we have been talking all about culture, and specifically creating a culture as a small business.
And how it's done from day one, by the way. We got to
From
talk
day
about that.
one all the way up to whenever you stop considering yourself a small business, really.
No. But culture never stops, though.
Culture
Even
never
then.
stops.
Okay. But we are talking
Exactly.
about culture, small business.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're trying to have a specific conversation here.
I
So
agree.
you brought up some great points about hiring last when we were talking about old business.
Thank you for calling them great points, by the way.
Well, I'm just, I got to butter you up before I break you down.
Okay.
So, brought up some points during old business
Got it.
where you take the lead. Now we are here in new business where I take the lead, and I'm very excited about this one. So,
I can't wait either, actually.
we were talking all about hiring.
Yes.
So, now let's talk a little bit about training and onboarding.
Okay.
So, really, what I wanted to talk about today for a new business, when you're developing your culture, you really should be prioritizing training, onboarding, and developing that message as a company, because that comes from the top down.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what industry you're in, what focus you have, and your development plans, you should always focus on hiring. And then the first thing for everyone you hire should be, how do I get them on the same page? How do I
Yeah.
get them on board,
Okay.
on the wagon?
Okay. So you're talking about more than just these statistical things, let's just say for onboarding, right? So like you're going to hire someone, you're going to onboard, everyone's going to hook up all of their stuff, and
Oh, yeah.
they're going to have
exactly.
their insurance, however it works out.
You have to
and
troubleshoot what you
Okay,
troubleshoot.
okay.
That's
So
not what I mean.
we're
no.
not talking about that.
Everyone has your own type of onboarding. That's not what we're
Gotcha.
talking about today.
Okay. You were talking about, from what, please correct me if I'm wrong, right? Is that when a new employee comes into a company, now how do we ingest them essentially into the culture, or how do we get them to adopt the culture, or to even recognize the culture, right? Maybe first, which is not the hardest thing, because once you start working with people, then you start understanding how things operate and all that other kind of stuff.
Exactly. What should you prioritize? Because
Right.
there's so many
Okay,
businesses.
so that's all easy. That's all easy.
Well, there are plenty of businesses. The first thought is, how can I get this employee working? How can I get
got
them
it.
focused on a specific task
I
that's
got it.
bringing things in for the company?
Do you want to know what I find interesting, though?
Okay.
Okay, so because you're talking about training and like all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so but what about? But this fits in culture too. About what the company stands for.
What do you mean?
All right, so let's just say you're working for a small business, right? And let's throw out a scenario. All right, so let's say the small business is doing well. Something. Let's dive into the federal contracting thing again, because we have experience in that. And so, small business goes and wins a contract. Okay. Let's say it's a $7.5 million contract for the Department of Agriculture. They're going to supply, let's say, tech services. Okay,
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens every day. Stuff like
Stuff like that.
Stuff like that. Okay, so now this small business, right? And let's just say they've been operating for about 4 or 5 years. Kind of similar to us, right? And so they go and win this contract. Now they've been saying this whole time that we love our employees, right?
Yeah.
We have integrity, right? We have all of this stuff, right? And we say these good things, right? And now when the win comes in,
They
right?
have work to perform.
Right. And then they go, instead of promoting from within, they go for outside hires
Okay.
and then leave the other employees who were there the whole time without any other kind of gain. And now they all automatically have other bosses now too, because they added to the hierarchy. So culture, right? So the hiring practice is one thing, right? So like who you're going to bring in for what, but man, and we said the term before too, honest broker, being an honest broker. And I think that's a responsibility from the company side too, about, hey, this is who we are, and mean it. And this is who we, this is how we operate. Then I think that's just an extremely important part of how to ultimately not only grow a business, but, keep employees happy, right? And sort of, feeling that like they are part of a team that they understand, and they understand what the team is and who the team is and what it is that the team is doing. Outside of that, right, and like any other kind of culture shock. So say in this case, company comes in and wins that contract and just like says, nope, by the way, we said this for all these years, but we really meant this, because when real money came in, right, perspectives changed. So it's things like that that'll just rock things and usually just ruin them in my own perspective. But what do you think?
Well, it has a lot to do with the priorities of the company, and that's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Prioritizing your employees and your current staff and their quality, their value, what they can really provide now and moving forward, as opposed to just looking at them as the force that you have, as the people that are there, and as expendable.
It's true. As expendable. See, that's the worst. You see, this is really what I think. Okay, especially as a small business, I kind of think that we have the perspectives a little bit backwards, right? To where like as we're building and running small businesses, there's just so much that we get, I think, completely wrong. Okay, which by the way, for listeners just tuning in now, we are Family Bid-Ness giving Ben, once again, small business
Insights and small business growth, small business strategy. That's really what we talk about here on the show.
That is. I just wanted to put you on the spot really quick. I just love seeing you jump like that.
I
and act like that.
appreciate you.
Keep you on your toes.
You're in the middle of a point, and then you just derail it to talk about something that's completely unrelated. I love it.
That's exactly right.
Speaking of, we were talking about training, and then you brought up promotions and incentives practices. So I think that is an interesting conversation to have because the maturity of your company is crucial.
Well, you see, and yes, and it goes to that too. But and the size of your business and what your business is, your service-based business, are you selling products? I mean, there's a lot to
actually that has nothing to do with
But
what I'm talking about at all. No. And I don't mean service-based, product-based. I don't mean the size of your company. What I mean by maturity is the maturity of your processes.
Yeah.
There are best practices everywhere.
That is exactly what I was driving to. That is exactly right. You see, now, as a small business, when we start out, we put that stuff on the back burner, right? Because we're thinking, let's get out there and get scrappy.
You're prioritizing cash. You want revenue.
Right. When in reality, I think it's the opposite and been through that because we have done that. Right, we have done that exact same strategy, right? And you get out there and you get scrappy, right?
Exactly.
There's no documentation, there's no anything, there's no real processes put in place, and which means now we experience the other side of that. When you go to actually start to grow, now if you don't have policies and processes actually documented and in place, it kind of gets a little difficult. You're trying to track everything through email. You're trying to, just try spreadsheets are floating around everywhere. It's stuff like that, right?
Exactly.
So I do think now going through that, absolutely. If I was starting a new business, a brand new small business today, I would focus 100% on the planning and processes first.
Yeah.
Really. Before I did anything. Of course, I'm also going to look and make sure that there's a market for what I'm selling.
You have to make sure that your business can do business. But then, absolutely. Yeah. The first thing you should focus on is your company structure. And that doesn't just mean who do you have in what position, but how are you getting new people onboarded?
Well, yeah.
What are your priorities, really?
And then also the communication that goes with that, too. You see, because when we're all starting out, it's so it's like the Wild Wild West. Yeah. And it's just shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
A whole lot of that.
Because there's communication on the job and off the job. And that all is all-encompassing when it comes to culture. So when your people are talking off the job and they're talking about their boss or they're talking about a bad experience they had, you want them talking about good experiences. You want them strategizing and thinking about how they can benefit the company the next day they go in because they're excited about going in the next day.
Now that is that right there. If a company can cultivate that, that's like magic in a bottle, right?
And this is really how we're saying you do that, right? That's through culture.
That's exactly right. Well, hey, now let's keep on that thought, and we will be right back with Family Bid-Ness.
So managing all your federal contracting data can be really hard. Pipeline management's a huge barrier to entry for businesses, federal contracting companies, really everybody. So when you're starting out, you really want to accelerate your growth plan and take advantage of anything that you can. So today, take advantage of Teaming Pro's actionable analytics and pipeline management. Activate your account and start organizing today with teamingpro.com.
Welcome back to Family Bid-Ness, where we're giving family insights into small business growth and small business strategy. I'm your host, Tim Haggerty, here with my co-host, Ben.
Hello.
And now we are having a very, I think, insightful discussion about something that you brought up, okay?
I'm still just appreciating that music. That's one of my favorites.
It actually is really nice.
It's soothing, yeah.
So, yeah. Well, now, with a soothing nature, okay, we're going to dive or going to slide right into this part here because you actually mentioned something that really touches a very good or sensitive point for me, right? To where, because we started the show with talking about hiring practices, but ultimately culture, right?
Yeah.
And then hiring, and then how that fits in because you want to bring in the right people, right, that fit in your culture. I think that we agree, but I want to make sure. I want to see how it is on this side here. Like culture, do you feel a culture is that important? Or do you think it's just one of those things? Or how do you feel about it?
So, yeah, culture is going to be one of the most important things to prioritize for your company.
Okay, all right. And you're saying that it leads to pretty much everything, right? To where like how our people feel every day when they're walking in, right? I mean, culture helps shape that.
There are certain foundational things. So when you start your business, you're a skeleton crew. You have the bare bones of what that business needs to be an actual business.
Right.
So you have an actual business, you're registered, certified. You have your CEO, and then whoever else really needs to be in that core group.
Right.
And that's
If anyone, sometimes
if
it's just
anyone.
one person.
Exactly.
That's right.
So that's where culture starts.
Right.
And that's why
That's right.
culture is so important, because it's one of those foundational things that's there at the very beginning of the business.
Now, let me ask you this. When you and I started our venture, right?
Oh, we neglected it like a little poor baby.
Did we
It
ever
was,
talk about culture?
not at all.
And at the same time, you and I were creating it, weren't we? Because it's easy to see it now. It's easy to see 4 or 5 years later, right? It's easy to see what the culture is.
Exactly.
But back then, we didn't even entertain the word, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay. But you just hit it, right? Tone from the top.
Oh, absolutely.
So that is exactly it. So here, new business starting out, foundation, right? So you have a foundational enterprise here. And then you're starting to build this up. And then with it is the culture, who we are, how we do business, right? And which leads to the words integrity, honesty, right?
Well,
timeliness.
It leads
All
to
leads to culture.
really breaking down what do you mean by culture in your business.
Okay.
So there are some companies where they're always going out Friday nights with their employees, with the core group, because that's their culture. They like to spend time with each other, and they
Yeah.
like to do those things outside of work and focus on things that aren't work.
All right. Well, yes. Okay.
So the first big question is, what do you mean by culture? What do you want to prioritize
Okay.
in your company?
Yeah, you see, because I'm not thinking about going out and partying necessarily. Although companies always have nice get-togethers, but a company perspective. But wait, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about in culture is when the company says we will have this ready by this date, then the company means it, and that. There might be one person in that's running that task, whatever that is, right? But that one person knows that, hey, if they need help, if they need anything, it's not like you better get this done. It's not like that's part of culture too, right? The culture here is we said yes to this. We always follow through with what we say yes to. That is part of culture. And then with that, right? How are we doing? What kind of support do you need to make sure that we as a company will deliver on what we said we would deliver on? That's culture.
That's
part of culture.
That's
anyway.
part of culture. That's
Okay.
company ideals.
At least give me that part. Okay, good.
Culture is what your employees feel when they're going to work. Culture is
Yeah.
what you as a manager, as a boss,
Well,
feels when you're going to work.
Isn't that what I'm talking about there? Those things. You know who you're working for. You know who you're working with. Everyone's in the same foxhole together.
No, that's just taking pride for your job. That's going in and caring about the job that you do. I mean, that's not really culture so much as just the focus of your company.
Okay. All right.
Well, I guess I'm not really sure. So extrapolate a little bit more for me.
All right. Well. First, just to let all our new listeners in know that we are family business, and we give small business insights and to growth and strategy from a family business perspective. So, within this here, I am going to go into a little bit more insight on this. Okay, because I really, really do think that this is crucial. And and knowing from a small business perspective, when we started, we didn't think about this, and we know how important that this really is. So everything that we say as an organization, right? Let's say it's one person. One person is the organization. If that one person says they're going to do it, then it's the organization that is reflected upon about whether that person does or does not do that, right? Now, with an organization itself, it's more complicated because you normally have more than just one person, right? So you have an organization, you have multiple people. Organizing those people, right, under the same umbrella, right? You would think it would be a difficult thing, but it's within culture if you communicate the culture. Now, this is part of it too, right? Communicating the culture will actually go and then say, this is how we do business. And then you don't just say it, you back it up. And once people get to see and experience how that works, it's can just be just a wonderful onboarding thing, really. Everyone's on the same ship. Everyone is rowing in the same direction, and we're stronger for it. Ultimately, and that's all culture.
I guess, but I see that more as PR. I see culture as if you're the boss, you're going to work every day of the week and you're showing up before everyone else.
Well,
that's how you set culture.
That's another part of it,
You're
too.
letting people have those conversations that aren't associated with work because you know it's going to boost their morale. That's culture.
That is exactly right. The first in, last out.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't that be the owner necessarily? Or maybe
not necessarily. That's dependent on your company.
Depending on the side of the company and then depending on the that's exactly right. You see, so hey, that actually brings up a really good point, perspective
but
on that kind of stuff too.
Culture is not your ideals as a company. Culture is what you're doing day to day and how that affects your people.
Yeah, but it rolls up to the ideals that you represent and stand for.
No, that's
and
just PR.
And are judged as a corporation.
That's just PR. No, that's you publicly trying to say, hey, we have culture. No, culture is what your employees talk about to their wife at the end of the day,
Okay.
It's what they're going home and they're yelling at over dinner.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's hope that that's not really happening and everyone's smiling over dinner, by the way.
Well, let's hope.
Because they're so happy.
No.
Yeah. Because they're so happy because they're with an organization that cares about them.
Exactly.
That they understand what the mission is.
That's good
that
culture.
They like. Yeah, exactly. Now.
So let's hope for good culture.
Well, actually, I say let's work for good culture.
Exactly.
This is the other part. Now, bringing it back to to like kind of how I was talking about when I started this, as like investments that a small business make. Right, when we're first starting out our small business, we are thinking, let's protect our resources. We gotta save cash. We're going to do a lot of legwork. And there's, some of that is absolutely true, right? But in this case here too, we have to think about why are we doing those things first? Number one, as a small business owner, I'll tell you why I did it, was so I could have us focus, right, on one thing and then try to do that one thing great, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, from that point on, all right, now we have something to grow from, okay? But, there's so much that a small business has to ultimately go through, and there's a lot of thorns and stuff like that to get through. But if an owner can, first of all, get through that, but then also if they can realize while they're going through it, how important, the people are to the growth of the organization. People are tied to culture, right? Investment in the right skill sets can set us off faster, right? Culture keeps us going, I think, and growing.
I still think it's investment in the right mindsets more than investment in the right skill sets.
Okay.
But regardless, we'll talk about that shortly. We're going to be right back with Family Bid-Ness right after this short water break. Stay tuned.
So TV Pro's growing network of over 25,000 companies is the perfect opportunity to promote your business directly to your target demographic. Now, Local Boost places companies directly in the market that they want to be doing business in. And using actionable analytics and a systemized AI-driven approach, you can step up your marketing game today. Just visit us at teamingpro.com, activate your free account. You can start reaching out to the growing Teaming Pro network right away.
Welcome back to Family Bid-Ness, where we give family insights into small business growth and small business strategy. Today, we have been talking all about culture.
Culture.
Had a fantastic conversation about hiring. Then we talked a little bit about training.
You liked my point about hiring?
Wow, you're still just so focused on my compliments, you know.
I just think it's fun.
Moving past that.
Thank you.
Okay. So, third, last, we were talking a little bit just about everything altogether.
Yeah.
So,
Agree.
the culture being a priority for your business,
Yeah.
culture being a cornerstone, one of the pillars that you stand up on when you're
Yes.
first starting out, and continuing to be that all the way through growing as a small business.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought up some interesting points, and we ended last a little bit talking about the difference between hiring based on skill set and hiring based
Right.
on mindset.
That is excellent. Yes. And thank you for bringing that, because I do want to circle back to that, because now that we've talked about the culture, I want you to get the insight as to how I'm thinking, as I make that kind of decision.
Yeah, so I think it's more just hiring, also focusing on training, onboarding, and developing that culture, because it is a daily thing, as we talked about.
I'm really glad that we had this conversation too, because when you said training and onboarding and all that stuff, I was thinking of something just different, right? So say like every year you got to go do a recertification,
Okay.
or you got I'm thinking that, because I'm old school. I
Wow.
come from the well, thank you, but
I was hoping onboarding would kind of specify that a little bit, but hey, no, understood.
But this is where I am open to learning new things every day. All
New
right,
things,
so
new ideas,
right,
and
that's right.
innovative topics.
So now I understand what you're saying when you say training.
Yeah.
You're talking about the employee not only getting the training for the task or the skill that they need to employ them, like whatever the job it is that they have, right? But also in how everything works and how the company operates.
Exactly.
In everything, nooks and crannies. Call it nooks and crannies, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. So the young generation says training for that stuff, that kind of
Training, onboarding, but yeah, it's that.
Okay,
It's developing that mindset in your employee.
I love
So
that. That's great. Okay.
I worked at a pet hospital as one of my first jobs, and they had a rigorous onboarding. They had a lot of different topics, a lot of different things you could do. They had
Right.
required onboarding, and they had just ones that I was free to choose to work through if I wanted to. And honestly, I spent more time on the ones that were that weren't that I didn't
Yeah.
have to do, the ones that weren't required.
Wow. And now of course that was a large company that you worked for there. I know the company, right? And so but now it's different now. You and I have been building a small business. So would you say that, or what is the contrast really between that large organization, which sounded very, very organized, right? You were like, you knew exactly what your job was going to be. You had all the training, and that's the processes that we're talking about putting in place. The small businesses don't have those to start off. It's more like, hey, willy-nilly, shoot from the hip.
That's exactly why I bring it up, because even with that company, they had their mandatory trainings, which they would force me to watch the video. I couldn't skip through it. I had to find different ways to trick the page into thinking that I was interacting with it, so it would play through.
This was through a computer.
Absolutely.
And so you were actively trying to just figure out a way to skip through?
Of course.
Yeah.
Anything mandated, I am obligated to skip. So tried my best, and I figured out some pretty successful ways to do it. I mean, I was already working the job.
So you were doing that versus learning what the training stuff was trying to tell you of how to do the job?
And that's the ironic part. I was already working the job. So most of my onboarding was just playing in the background while I was actually working.
So you really felt like that right there was a waste of time.
And that's why I'm bringing it up. Because here, like you said, coming in, working, and building a small business, I miss it. And I appreciate that, because even the trainings that I was forcing myself through, skipping, not paying attention to, the little bits here and there I would read, the infographics that I saw, they still got me on board with the company culture. They still got my mindset developed.
Okay.
And I was able to understand those things that otherwise I didn't know.
Well, and then plus also the tasks on the job itself. Like you're really smart, so like you're going to pick up on stuff really quickly.
I was
But
front desk, so
yeah,
it's not like I was drawing blood or doing anything at the hospital that actually required, like, I needed to know. No, it was more just clerical work. So
okay.
a lot
Well,
of memorization.
so yeah, so I totally get that too. That some of that other stuff that you're forced or mandated to do, a waste of time, right?
Yep.
But now think of it from the company perspective, there, and especially from the managerial perspective. Hey, we need to get these employees onboarded. This seems to be the most successful way that we have so far. So we run through the process, and that's the process, right?
Yep.
I mean, so now. Depending on how, of course, you use the word forced to watch it, right? So
Well, it
depending on
wouldn't
how
let me
rigorous,
skip it.
yeah,
Well, for everybody, this is Family Bid-Ness. Welcome to the show. We are giving family insights into small business growth, small business strategy.
yes,
Right now, we're talking a little bit about one of my past jobs at a pet hospital.
well,
So we talked about the training there. Now
right.
let's talk about the hiring, because when I got hired at that job, I was 18 years old,
Uh-huh.
and the hiring manager actually took me downstairs into the hospital right after my interview and introduced me to everyone and
Oh,
said I
so
was the best interview that he had ever had.
wow, congratulations.
And I just, I continue to look back at that job and be amazed by how underqualified I was and how I really probably should not have been hired
Well,
at that stage.
All right, well, see, now, excellent point. Now, you're actually making the other side of the argument with this, I'd say, because they hired you. You didn't have the skills for that particular job, but they were willing to train you. They probably paid you less than if they would have brought someone in with the particular skills. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but
Exactly. No,
but
you're right.
they were willing to train you, pay you less, right, and then have a longer term burn maybe before they could put you out in front of people or put you out and like work a full shift or any of that other kind of stuff.
And that's where, with them being such a big company, they really didn't do that. They gave me all the onboarding equipment and
And
all the resources I
And
needed.
they just threw you out there.
They took the first opportunity where I said I was willing to try.
Yep.
And ever since then, I was working the job.
Boop.
Absolutely.
And-
And that's how it works commonly. They wait for that moment, the first moment where you say, I'm somewhat comfortable, and they throw you out into it.
And why not? I mean,
Exactly.
if you were on the other side of that, if you were on the management side of that, wouldn't you do the same thing?
Because they're trying to get you to be profitable. They want you to
Exactly.
work for the company instead of the company spending resources on you.
That is the other thing about it, right? It's where, it's like the company wants the employees to succeed.
But it's
You
so
know?
funny because with me going through that, I just saw it as a paycheck. I left that company when personal stuff got in the way, and
Well-
I didn't even bat an eye.
That's
I
okay.
loved the people.
That's
I
okay.
loved my coworkers.
You see, but you're young too,
But-
and culture about staying in jobs now, it's like it's not the same when I was going through it. I will tell you that. And
Well-
even mine was even rocky-ish, right? It wasn't the same as if you went through it back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s
Yeah.
even.
And with a big company like them, they're in all states. So I was moving out of state. A big thing for them is you'll transition to a different hospital.
That's actually a really, really great benefit when you work for
Yep.
a larger organization.
And I
Now,
chose not to do it because I was not bought in.
you were not bought in. Actually, that is really such an excellent point. It reminds me of a story. Can I tell you a story?
Absolutely.
Just really, really quick.
Go
Okay.
for it.
There's a wall. There's people are building a wall. There's a big cloud, right? And this guy walks up to the guy building the wall, and he goes, "Hey, how's it going building the wall?" And then the guy's like, "Oh, it's hot. I don't get paid any money. This is horrible. First one that offers me more cash, I'm out of here." Right? And he goes, "Okay." And he walks down the wall a little bit, cloud, whatever. See this other guy, says, "Hey, how's it going working on the wall?" The guy's like, "Oh man, this is amazing. Look at this. I'm part of history, right? My kids are going to know about this." And it's hot. We don't get paid a lot of money, but look what we get to be able to do together. And that's kind of the point, right?
Well, I'm glad that we were able to have this wonderful conversation about
Oh, so
building
am I.
walls, even as we just broke this one down and
That's-
crossed this bridge with our family divide.
I'll tell you, that'll
It's
do it.
wonderful. That'll do it.
You are so impressive, and at every day just gets better and better and better.
Finding the right talent to grow your small business can be nearly impossible, but Fiverr Pro takes care of that for you. Elevate your projects with Fiverr Pro. Connect with top-tier professionals vetted for their expertise and reliability. Whether you need a stunning website, impactful marketing campaign, or expert consulting, it's Fiverr Pro. Visit Fiverr.com and use code BID-NESS. That's BID-NESS today and see the difference it makes.